In the heart of Odogbo, a prosperous African village surrounded by golden fields and thick forests, stood a tree unlike any other. Iroko Kofa, they called it the Forbidden Iroko. It towered over every hut and farmland, its bark as black as midnight, its roots thick and twisted like the arms of lost spirits. Even on the windiest days, its leaves never rustled, and when the full moon shone, its shadow stretched unnaturally far, creeping toward the village as if it had a life of its own. For generations, the elders had passed down a single warning: no one must touch Iroko Kofa, for it does not give shade, it takes life. The tree was not always this way. Long ago, before it turned dark and menacing, the land where it stood had been home to a powerful sorcerer named Okude. This sorcerer was feared, not for his wisdom, but for his cruelty. He had once ruled the land with dark magic, using his spells to bend people's will and drain their spirits for his own power. But one day, the people rose against him. The elders and warriors joined forces and called upon the gods, who stripped Okude of his human form and bound his wicked soul inside the very tree that stood in his courtyard. The village, now free, rejoiced, but the curse had only begun. Iroko Kofa was no ordinary tree. It was alive in a way that no tree should be. It fed on the life force of the village, draining the energy of those who walked too close, whispering in the night, luring victims with eerie voices that mimicked lost loved ones. Crops near it would wither overnight, animals would grow sick and die, and sometimes, just sometimes, people would disappear. To keep the tree's hunger at bay, the villagers began leaving offerings at its roots, bowls of fresh milk, roasted yams, and kola nuts. It was said that as long as the tree was fed, it would remain still, watching but not taking. But some rules are always broken. In the village lived a boy named Juba. At 12 years old, he was fearless, curious, and impatient with the old ways. He listened to the stories of Iroko Kofa but never truly believed them. "It is just a tree," he often told his mother. "How can a tree eat people? How can a tree whisper?" One evening, after overhearing the elders warn children for the 100th time never to go near the tree, Juba made up his mind. "I will prove them all wrong." That night, when the village slept under the silver glow of the moon, Juba crept out of his hut. The wind was still, and the world was eerily silent, too silent. No crickets chirped, no owls hooted. Even the distant river seemed to hold its breath. Juba moved quickly, stepping barefoot through the soft sand, his small lantern flickering in the darkness. As he approached Iroko Kofa, the air grew colder, unnaturally cold. His skin prickled, but still, he pressed on. Then, the whispers began. "Juba. Juba. My son. Come closer." His heart pounded. The voice, it sounded like his father's. But his father had died years ago. "No," Juba muttered, shaking his head. "It's just my mind playing tricks." Determined, he reached out and touched the bark. Instantly, the ground trembled. The tree shuddered violently, its roots bursting from the soil like riding serpents. The whispers turned into shrieks, and before Juba could run, thick, slimy roots wrapped around his legs, yanking him off the ground. "Foolish child. You have awakened me." The tree's hollow trunk split open, revealing a dark, endless abyss within. The air smelled of decay and something older, something evil. Juba screamed as the roots dragged him toward the opening, his lantern falling and shattering against a rock. Fortunately, Baba Ogana, the eldest man in the village, had seen Juba sneaking out earlier and had followed him. He arrived just in time, holding a sacred staff carved from blessed wood. "Release the boy," Baba Ogana commanded. The tree only howled in laughter. The roots tightened around Juba, pulling him closer. But Baba Ogana was prepared. He reached into his satchel and pulled out a small gourd filled with sacred ash, the same ash used by the ancestors to trap the sorcerer in the tree long ago. With a deep, powerful voice, he chanted an ancient incantation, his voice shaking the air itself. "Spirits bound, spirits cursed, let this tree release the thirst. With fire and dust, let it cease, and let the village be at peace." As he spoke, he flung the ash onto the tree's roots. A terrible screech tore through the night. The roots unraveled, flinging Juba onto the ground. He gasped for breath, scrambling away as fast as he could. The tree shuddered violently, its trunk cracking open wider as a shadowy figure emerged, twisting and writhing in agony. "No," the voice wailed. "I will not be sealed again." But Baba Ogana lifted his staff high and struck the ground. A blinding light shot from the earth, wrapping around the dark figure, pulling it back into the hollow of the tree. The moment the last wisp of shadow vanished, the tree let out one final groan, and then, at last, it fell. With a thunderous crash, Iroko Kofa was no more. The villagers arrived, their eyes wide with shock. They had seen the evil of the tree with their own eyes. Baba Ogana turned to Juba, who still trembled. "Curiosity is not a sin, my child," the old man said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "But wisdom is knowing when to listen to those who came before you." The next morning, the elders gathered the strongest warriors and, in a great ceremony, burned the remains of Iroko Kofa. In its place, they planted a mighty baobab tree, a symbol of renewal and protection. From that day on, Odogbo thrived. The crops grew again, the cattle were healthy, and the whispers in the night were never heard again. But the villagers never forgot the lesson of the evil tree. And so, the tale was passed down through generations, not just as a warning, but as a reminder that fear thrives in ignorance, but true courage comes from knowledge and unity.